happy Halloween to all of our wonderful listeners out there. This is the All Cardinals podcast. My name is Donnie Druin, joined by my co-host Richie Bradshaw. Richie, before we even talk about football, happy Halloween, my brother. What was your favorite candy that you got as a kid going up in your bag?
Man, it's hard not to go Reese's. I feel like that's the safe answer. That's the responsible answer. People who know me know I love my sour candy too, though. So all the Sour Patch Kids and Sour Skittles and stuff like that. But probably Reese's. Just go safe or reliable. Can't go wrong with it.
Are you a candy corn guy?
Believe it or not, I am a
Okay.
candy corn guy. But my thing is like I don't go out of my way to buy it, but if it's in front of me, yeah, I'll eat it. Like I like it. I'm not obsessed with it kind of thing, but I'll
I
eat
don't
it.
even know where they sell it.
Bro,
Is it
you could
legal?
probably just go to like is it legal? I can't with you. Talk
But no,
football.
I'm Reese's for sure. Reese's for sure. I hope everybody out there is already having a phenomenal, happy Halloween. We already got a couple comments in the chat. Hashtag fire Kime off the bat. This is our first episode. We're not even 2 minutes in. We already got a fire Kime. Then shout out to Bird Gang family. Happy Halloween. We should have won that game. Was disappointed. Disappointed indeed, I think, is the right way to describe that. Dropping week 8's contest against the who did they even play? The Minnesota Vikings. Sorry, I got Reese stuck on my mind. 34-26, another one possession game. Richie, did you know that the Vikings have now won 5 games in a row? All 5 of them have been one possession games.
Dude, that was the story of that team last year too. Is like Minnesota doesn't know how to blow teams out. Like they win close games, like right, wrong, and different, for better or for worse. It's just their bread and butter. It's whatever they've got cooking right now for that team. I mean, it's a good team. It's not a great team. Arizona was definitely in this game. They probably should have pulled it out, but I mean, if it makes you feel better, the Vikings are 6-1, and at least you didn't get blown out. You stayed the course with the rest of the teams that they've been playing and kept it one possession. And yeah, I got to agree with Bird Gang. I feel like this is a game you should have won.
No, I remember reading a feature on ESPN about Kevin O'Connell and his teams being able to pull out close to wins. And Cliff Kingsbury, talked about that today, saying that's kind of the difference in the NFL. You know, when the season's over, you kind of look back and you reflect. And a lot of those one possession games determine whether or not you're on the couch watching the playoffs or you're actually on the field. Watching it. But no, I agree with you. I agree with Birdie Gang. There was a moment in time there, I think towards the end of the third quarter, where I legit thought the Cardinals were going to win. You know, it felt like the tide had finally turned for them. It felt like they were finally going to get their stuff together. But unfortunately, no, they were not able to pull it through. Just another case of too little, too late for this Cardinals football team. And I feel like that's kind of been the mantra for them this year. You know, another slow start offensively, slow start defensively for them as well. Both sides managed to kind of get it together, but in the end, not enough for 60 minutes of football.
No, and this reminds me of an old saying that's been tuned a little bit with the popularity of sports gambling and everything. But the saying that I remember was good teams win, great teams win ugly. Arizona has not been able to do that this year. Now, the Raiders game, completely indicative of an ugly win that shows grit, determination, all that good stuff. The win against Carolina, that was ugly, but that's not the kind of ugly we want. The win against New Orleans, I felt like that was just a pretty good all-around feel-good win for the team. I look at the rest of the schedule, though, and there's just so many of these game situation scenarios, drives, plays, where you're just like, one thing goes different and this game might be different. Think about that Rams game from way, way back when. And you lose that game. It was like 20-11 or something like that. I have the schedule right here in front of me if I wanted to use my eyes. 20-12. And you gave up one touchdown in that game, if my memory serves. And it was that Cooper Kupp rush. And other than that, you had given them the clamps pretty well and just weren't able to close that game out. And that just feels like the same old song and dance of the Cardinals this year is those 2 to 3 plays. They can't do it. Another reference, sorry for all the references. Deadpool, where at the very end of the movie, Colossus is like, it only takes like 2 or 3 moments to be a superhero. And that's what defines you, not the wake up a superhero and brush your teeth a superhero. For the Cardinals, it's like there's 2 or 3 moments in every game that can help define a win. Cardinals can't get those moments, and it's why they're sitting here 3-5 instead of 5-3 or better.
Reese's in Deadpool already. I love this so much. I can't wait to do this for the rest of our lives.
Absolutely.
I completely agree with you. I think 10 points at halftime, you're sitting there, you're feeling kind of whatever. I mean, if you're a Cardinals fan, you are very used to the slow starts out of the gate. But like you have to wonder, is it a perfect storm of everything going wrong at once? Because you have to remember they were missing 3 of their starting 5 offensive linemen. The entire left side, DJ Humphries was ruled out 90 minutes before game time. He's listed as inactive. You had Justin Pugh, who tore his ACL, completely out for the rest of the season. Then you had Rodney Hudson, who has only played 4 games, missed last week, and then Cliff Kingsbury confirmed today that Hudson is going to be out in Week 9 against the Seahawks whenever they come and visit State Farm Stadium. So, you have the protection up front, certainly not ideal. James Conner has battled injuries. There was a point in time where it was Connor, Darrell Williams, and Jonathan Ward all out. Now, granted, you do have Benjamin. Benjamin has played fairly well this season. You didn't have Hopkins for the first 6 games. Marquise Brown gets hurt just in time whenever Hopkins is coming back. It almost feels like there's just nothing can quite go the Cardinals' way. Do you feel that's the case, or is it just simply down to guys like Cliff and Kyler not being able to get the job done? Because I feel like it's probably a good mixture of both.
I think that's probably the best way to put it, Donnie, is it's a little bit of both right now. And what we have to be careful of is trying not to assign too much excuse when we're looking at this team, because Cliff and Kyler have been here for 4 years now, and it's just been the same old song and dance that we've come to know from them. They've made the playoffs once. They wet the bed in that playoff game. They've pretty much played every game since then, like what we've become accustomed to. And the frustrating part is this is a very talented Cardinals team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially offensively. I don't understand how this isn't one of the top 5 highest scoring teams in football when you've got Kyler Murray, a 2-time Pro Bowler, and one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in football. You've got a cavalcade of receiving options. You've got Zach Ertz, who many would tell you is one of the best tight ends of the 2010s, is still playing very good football. You had Marquise Brown, who was supposed to be one of the best deep threats in football because Baltimore didn't know how to use him, but he comes here and he has a career low in yards per reception. So I'm starting to wonder, at what point is it okay to realize that Arizona is just going to continue to underachieve with the current staff that they have? I do want to see more from Kyler, but it's gotten to a point where I feel like blaming Kyler is not going to solve anything. You paid him. He's not going anywhere. I understand that Cliff got an extension. Carolina just showed you that you don't need to stick around with coaches if you need to move on. They fired Matt Rule. They're paying him a buttload of money for the next couple of years at least. But they just need to draw a line in the sand, man. Say this isn't good enough for us. Michael Bidwell.
I agree.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. No, go ahead.
No, you're good. With Michael Bidwell, in one sense, you can truly appreciate the patience that he has for his front office. Steve Keim this is his 10th season as the general manager for Arizona now. He started way back in 2013. He's been with the Cardinals longer than that, because when Rod Graves was calling the shots, he was still in that front office. This is a very patient ownership. You love that. He's given these guys opportunities, but it's probably time to start moving on.
No, I agree. And it's funny because I've talked to 2 different people, none of them actually within the organization, but I talked to a really respected media member of the Cardinals. I'm like, hey, do you think they're going to fire Cliff? And he's like, no, I think Bidwell has a little bit too much pride. I think he's willing to kind of let the patience ride it out at least one more season.
Right.
Maybe probably due to a couple of the reasons that, we had previously talked about with all the injuries and all that good stuff. And then I talked to a higher up person within a major broadcasting company. And he was like, look, he's probably going to be gone at the end of the year. And, if trends kind of keep up. So 2 different completely opposite schools of thinking. I feel like nobody really has a good idea of what is going to happen with that scenario, which is good if you're the Cardinals, because not a whole lot of info actually leaks from the organization. So they do run a fairly tight ship whenever it comes to that. But no, I completely agree. I think Kyler is a very popular scapegoat, and sometimes
Yes,
deservingly so. I can't talk today. Sometimes deservingly
right there with
so.
you.
Cliff also deservingly so. But like you watched this team, you watched them go 7-0 last year. You saw what they could be. Arguably, the offense is just about the same, if not a little bit better. And then you watch the defense finally start to pick up their end of the deal, play phenomenal football. And now you're number 2 spending offense in the NFL, the second most amount of money in the league with Marquise Brown now on the roster. You're telling me they can't hold up their end of the deal? Come on.
Yeah,
Outrageous, simply outrageous. I do want to touch on Rondell Moore's usage in the Vikings game, though, because I am so sick and tired of Rondell Moore catching in 90 screen passes along the line of scrimmage and them not targeting him downfield. Look what happened if they finally let him run in the open space.
right. Who would have thought that a dude with the kind of freaky athleticism that God gave him, matched with what you saw him do in college at Purdue when the ball was in his hands, who would have thought that would translate to the NFL? Actually giving him an opportunity in open space, not behind the line of scrimmage and not bubble screens and not little jet sweeps and all the other cutesy stuff they try to do. Actually use him as a wide receiver.
Yep.
Look what happened. That's the
Wild.
best Rondell Moore we've seen.
And that kind of speaks to Cliff Kingsbury's inability to really adapt. I mean, you have so
Right.
many weapons across the board, and he talks all the time on wanting to get him open in space. Speed works vertically too. Rondell Moore made a handful of plays down the field last year for you. I'm just not super certain what they're seeing in the film. I'm not sure why they are so committed. They're trying to run him horizontally. Let him unleash his speed down the field. But you know what? I don't get paid to call plays. I'm not an offensive coordinator. I am not a play calling offensive guru, but I think a lot of people are starting to question whether or not Cliff Kingsbury is indeed that.
I think
So
that's fair to say is just, yeah. I don't know what
overall,
else I can add.
overall, a very disappointing, I think, would be the right term, especially
Yeah.
given the Cardinals were so much in that game up until the very, very end. I mean, they had opportunities to either A, take the lead, or B, at least tie the game, put it into overtime. We've seen them do it once already this year. So for them not to pull that out, kind of disappointing. It is what it is. I do want to touch on this comment right here before we move on. Robbie Anderson played about 12 snaps last week. I think the week prior in his debut against the Saints, he played like 17 snaps. They're still working him in.
Mhm.
Kingsbury said they're not going to try to rush him in. He is impressed with Robbie's ability to pick up the playbook, but I mean, I get the Robbie Anderson appeal, but at a certain point, man, like you just have to put those guys in the right position to succeed, and that's just not something Cliff has proven that he can do consistently.
With anyone.
Yeah.
With
I mean,
anyone.
it's easy with DeAndre Hopkins because you could put DeAndre Hopkins at left tackle and he would somehow still be a Pro Bowler. I mean, just
Look what he was doing
phenomenal
in
talent.
Houston, right? He was
Yeah.
1,500-yard receiver, and man, was Watson there at the time? That I don't even know. Like some of his biggest seasons came before Deshaun Watson
Some of
was
his biggest
even.
seasons came with me and you throwing him the football.
Yeah, that 1,500-yard season was his third year in the league. That was 2015. So that was 2 years before Watson got there.
Absolutely unreal. A lot of weapons and a lot of frustration with Cardinals fans, and deservingly so. But take solace, you are not the only people frustrated with their performance so far. Today, Isaiah Simmons talked with media members, and this is what he had to say. If I can pull it up, that would be phenomenal.
I think right now it's just time for everybody to just put your egos to the side and let's just put our head down and go get what we really want. Um, like at the end of the day, we all have the same goal. We all want to play here. We want to be the last ones playing in our stadium. We don't want anybody else playing in our stadium, in our locker room. So, I feel like everyone, it's just like time to wake up, and everyone is now on the same page, and it's time to fight to what we want.
Thanks, Isaiah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Time to wake up. And it's funny because every time Cliff talked to us reporters in the media room, at least in the last couple of weeks, it's always been, we got to figure this out. Time is running out. How many more times can you say time is running out before time actually runs out?
There's another old saying, Donnie, that I love. This one doesn't have anything to do with football necessarily, but it's just three simple words. Talk is cheap.
Nope.
And we hear the excuses just funnel out of his mouth every single week. We got to get better. We got to execute. We got to do this. We got to do that. There's plenty of head coaches who do this. It's not just the Cliff Kingsbury thing, but Cliff Kingsbury is not generating anything new to say. It feels like there's a teleprompter that's behind us while we're talking to him, and he's just reading it and going, we got to get better and this, that, and the other. So, talk is cheap, man. Stop saying that you're going to make changes. Stop saying that you need to make adjustments. Stop saying that whatever else comes to mind with these conversations that we have to have. At some point, he needs to actually do something about it, and he hasn't been. And that's why Cardinal fans are so frustrated, is they're hearing, we want to be better. We want to do this. We want to do that. But the Cardinal fans are still sitting here like, well, then when are you going to do it?
Yeah. And one thing that drives me crazy as a media member, hearing him talk about how hard the players play, and they do. And I don't think there's any doubting anybody's effort whenever it comes to the Cardinals locker room. But wouldn't you think, if you know the players are playing hard and you're sitting here at 3-5, wouldn't you try to look in the mirror a little bit, And not that he goes and blames players, not that he goes and deflects anything, because he does take some responsibility after losses. But at a certain point, when do the chips kind of be stacked against you? And I'm not saying he should take on all of that responsibility, but it just seems like, kind of touching back on this point, a perfect storm of just everything that could probably go wrong, going wrong. I do want to address this comment really quick before we get to our next topic. How is the locker room when we lose? Not a good time. No, nobody wants to talk, understandably, because they're all kind of pissed. Kyler, and I'll give him a lot of credit, that dude wants to win. Kyler Murray wants to win a football game more than anybody watching this or listening to this can even imagine. After one of the losses, he sat there at his locker for probably an hour and just sat there fuming, frustrated. Colt McCoy had to go over to him, try to ease him up a little bit. It's really tense. And a lot of those guys tend to dip very early whenever they lose. And I would probably do the same, because the last thing I want to do as an NFL player is stand in front of microphones and cameras and stuff and have to answer questions and know whatever I say is probably going to be diced up some way and spread out across Twitter and every other app known to man. So I get it. I think you kind of put it best, though. You can really hear a pin drop whenever they lose.
You can absolutely just feel the tension in the room when you walk into that locker room. You see these guys with their heads down and they're mad, and they should be, right? You just lost a football game. The last thing I want to do is go into that locker room and see you laughing and making TikToks. The last thing I want to do is see you doing anything except thinking about what you want to do next or talking with your teammates about how you're going to get better. The Cardinals are frustrated. The players, especially, you almost feel this sense of they feel like they're being let down by the coaching staff. And it's like you said, Donnie, it's not a fun atmosphere. The media almost feels like we're barging in. We're inconveniencing them, because unfortunately part of the media's job is to have conversations with these guys, and everyone wants to talk when you win. No one wants to talk when you lose. And there's been a lot more losing than there has winning this year for the Cardinals. It's a frustrated group. They don't, like I said, nobody likes losing, but man, I'm sure these guys would do a lot to win more games, and you'd be surprised how quickly everything could shift. But I still stand firm that maybe some of this could get easier if we just had a new voice in the room in terms of like coaching.
Nope, I think you're completely correct. I do want to touch on this really quick. What is happening with Rodney Hudson? He has a knee injury, and like I said a little bit earlier, he has only played 4 games this season. Cliff already ruled him out for next week against the Seahawks. Wouldn't really commit to like a timetable or anything like that for Rodney Hudson's return. All he said was he hopes to get him back at some point. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Rodney Hudson, to be very honest. Obviously, he's the team's best center. It's no shade to Billy Price, but Rodney Hudson is a Pro Bowl guy. The Cardinals are sometimes really sneaky with how they go about injuries and the way they disclose things. So I don't want to say too much, but I don't think there's anything like outside of the works going on with Rodney Hudson. At least I don't subscribe to that theory.
I don't know what they're going to do with Hudson, man. So I just out of curiosity, I'm on Spot Track right now, and they can cut him next year with about a little less than $6 million coming back on the cap. But yeah, this has not been a very good trade for them. They definitely have gotten the wrong end of the stick with Rodney Hudson coming from Vegas. Man, we thought this was a slam dunk. I mean,
well,
Rodney
it looked
Hudson,
like a slam dunk.
Yeah.
And that's the really weird part about this is that the first year Hudson was here, it seemed like the Cardinals played tons better with Hudson at the helm. But I mean, even going back to last season, I mean, like there's been a lot of problems getting Kyler the ball with him snapping on a shotgun. That continued this year a little bit before he got hurt as well. Obviously, we saw Billy Price in that miscommunication, against the Vikings last week too. So a very strange situation indeed with Rodney Hudson. And then also a really interesting thing too. I don't know if you saw what Patrick Peterson said about the Cardinals after the game. If you were living under a rock, to make it very short and concise, Patrick Peterson did not have glowing reviews for his former team. And, hopefully the team he goes into the Hall of Fame with. But I mean, for him to have the game that he did against the Cardinals, I mean, three pass, deflections. He's the only player on either the Vikings or the Cardinals to have more than one. Came up very, very big at crucial moments. And let's not forget, former Cardinal linebacker Jordan Hicks made the stop on Eno Benjamin on a 4th down to give the Vikings the ball back very late in the 4th quarter as well. Talk about 2 of your own former guys shutting the door on you.
It's poetic, I guess, for them, but man, I maybe it's like blissful ignorance when it came to all of the Patrick Peterson stuff that had been going on towards the end of his stint with the team, and he left. And I definitely chose to believe that a lot of it was overblown, and that maybe this isn't necessarily as big a deal. Like, it's just everything will get worked out.
Disgruntled player moves on from team. He has bad stuff to say, right?
Exactly. But man, it's been a minute now. We're in year 2 of him moved on from this team, and there are still hard feelings. Like, tell me anything that's more annoying than a former player plays or a current player plays their former team. We call it a revenge game every single time. For Patrick Peterson, this was a revenge game.
Oh no, he took it personally.
This was a revenge game. He took it personally.
The celebration end zone too.
Yes. Yeah, the video game or whatever. Yeah. Yikes. He definitely has a little bit of animosity, which is going to make it interesting when he does retire. Like you said, this is a Hall of Fame player. Like there's some debate to it, I guess. But point is, there's not a lot of debate who he's going in with. Short of him having some ridiculous 10-year stretch with the Vikings. Like, this is a Cardinal that everyone will remember him as. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get to a point where it's like, when is it okay to have Patrick Peterson not be this taboo subject. I talk to my dad all the time, and I'm like, hey, have you forgiven Patrick Peterson yet? And it's like, no, not yet. It's like, all right. And I know my dad's not alone in those feelings towards Patrick Peterson. There are a lot of hard feelings towards Patrick Peterson from Cardinal fans. And I get it. And
sure.
it's valid. And it goes both ways.
Oh, no, I was just getting ready to kind of nail that point home. It definitely goes both ways. So no love lost between the two sides. And, hopefully whenever it's all said and done, things kind of be mended, because like he will be an Arizona Cardinal. He might not have been a lifer here in the Valley, but I think once the dust settles a little bit, people will really appreciate the career he had for the Cardinals and what he was able to do and accomplish with a lot of teams that weren't great. And he had a couple good stints, made the NFC Championship game back in 2015. I mean, he was a damn good corner for a very long time. And I don't think that's going to get lost in the shuffle whenever it's all said and done.
No, not at all. Very, very good player. There's no debating that aspect of it. But yeah, it's tense, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. And I don't know when it's going to stop being that way.
Nope. I completely agree. I think only time will tell. And, kind of bringing things back to modern day, Richie, the Cardinals are 3-5. We're about halfway through the season right now. They're not exactly where they want to be, but they did get a little bit of help coming out of the gates. They were only one game back from the division lead as of last week. The NFC, and just the NFC West too, almost entirely has played very bad football this year. I think I read somewhere where scoring is down, I think 20% compared to last year, throughout the league. It's just not great football being played. So a very good thing for the Cardinals thus far, but kind of touched on it earlier. At some point, you just have to stop making excuses and turn very close losses into wins. I think we're entering kind of like that do or die stretch, right? Where their next 3 weeks, Richie, they are at home against the Seahawks, on the road against the Rams the following week, and then they head to Mexico to play the 49ers on Monday Night Football. You have 3 division games in a row. You don't play another division game until week 18 against the 49ers again.
Your last one.
This is it. If your season is going to sink or swim, this is going to be the 3-game stretch that it's going to happen in. And if you don't emerge at least with 2 wins out of the 3 games,
100%. No, this is like, I feel like it's very hard to look at, seeing the Seahawks in first place after all the talk about how they were going to be picking potentially number 1 overall. Incredibly weird. Like, but with a 17-game football season, it's a long time, right? There's a lot of games. There's a lot of chances to go up and down, but this is it. This is your season right here. You are 3-5. You are currently 0-2 in the division, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 0-2 because you dropped the game to Seattle and you dropped the game to LA. You are 0-2. If you, like you said, if you can't win at least 2 of these games, at least to get yourself to 2-3 in the division with a shot to be 500, which would, in an ideal world, give you a tiebreaker with everyone, right? If you can't do that, your chances of competing in this season are basically gone. And it's not like there's a lot of confidence, I guess, left for fans right now, because I know that looking at this Cardinals team, the way they've played, and looking at the remainder of the schedule, it's very difficult to find any kind of optimism here. Yeah. This is a very tough stretch left to play, because the NFC West has not been great this year, but man, it's been competitive. And man, all 3 of these teams definitely feel a few steps ahead of you. The Chargers, who knows with that game. Right. And then, the rest of the schedule, like, this is not a kind schedule to Arizona, but at the same time, they could make a run. The talent is there, Donnie. This is a talented team.
True.
So it's time to nut up or shut up, good old Zombieland.
I think that's absolutely right. And we If any team knows, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. It is the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, it is.
The same team who started out, I think, 7-0 last year, somehow collapsed their way, fell forward into the playoffs. You don't have the luxury of losing games when you're 7-0 this year. And to be really honest, I think this Cardinals team has improved since week one, although the performance they gave against the Chiefs in week one left a lot of room for improvement. So I'm not, exactly sure if you want to take that with a grain of salt or not. I just don't see this team making this miracle turnaround. They have the talent to. I don't think you're wrong at all. And I really want to touch on that. Dave Brandt, who covers the Cardinals and basically every other Arizona sports team for the Associated Press, asked a really good question today. He said, hey, now that DeAndre Hopkins is here, he's played 2 games with you. There's nobody else walking through that door that is going to save you. There's no, we just got to wait until we get so-and-so back. Nobody else is walking through that door for you. Right. Is there at least a little bit more urgency to kind of get things going? And I thought that's just the kind of perfect way to encapsulate that. Nobody's going to save you. There's no longer X days until DeAndre Hopkins hanging up in the locker room. DeAndre Hopkins is here. Everybody else that you basically have or need is here. Now you need to go win football games.
I think that's probably the best way that you can think about the remainder of the season, right? Is Cardinals have so much talent, we're 3-5. 100%. This is this should not be a 3-5 football team.
We did not think we would be covering a 3-5 football team.
I'm not saying this is an 8-0 team, but this is not a 3-5 football team.
Nope.
This is a team that is much better than that.
But at the end of the day, and
kind of only does so much, right?
Well, to kind of continue your little sayings that we got going on here, you are what your record is.
Very true. 100%. You are what your record is. The Cardinals are 3-5 for a reason. And it's not because of the refs. It's not because of anything other than the play and the coaching that the team has been putting out. This is do or die time. You have your next 3 games. You need to win majority of them, if not all of them, and get back into the driver's seat of controlling your destiny, because the NFC has not been a great conference entirely this year. Look at the NFC South. You potentially could have a losing team win that division. What I mean when I say that, there's opportunity to get into the playoffs here. Mm-hmm. Maybe not through the NFC West, but you got to find a way to step up, because your time is closing very, very rapidly. We went 8 games and we said 7 games. 8 games.
8.
It is 8. Yeah. Okay. I'm not crazy. Yeah. You've just gone 8 games. Now's the time. You got to turn it around.
Yep. I think that's the perfect way to end this podcast episode. Put up or shut up time. The Cardinals will have 3 division opponents within their next 3 games. You can catch all of that coverage at allcardinals.com. I'm getting ahead of myself there again. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page, please, and thank you. Follow me at Donnie Druin on Twitter. Richie, go to give me your @.
You can find me at Richie Brads36. That's Brads.
Absolutely. Love to hear it. Guys, thank you so much for all the interaction in the chat. Myself and Richie will be back soon. Stay safe. Enjoy your Halloween candy, and we'll catch you guys next time.